Welcome back to Breaking Bet. It's day 2 of the regionals. And, before we get into what we saw in day 2, or we're expected to see in day 2, we're going to talk about what we saw in day 1. And I needed a little bit of help here today. So I got my guy, Cal Wager, great college baseball mind. And Cal, thanks so much for joining me, brother. How you doing today?
Good. Happy Saturday. That was felt like a entire playoff worth of excitement in one day. That was the craziest opening day of a regional series I could ever imagine, and anything I could even remember. So that was a lot of fun to get this thing kicked off.
Dude, I mean, all right, you're in Cali, obviously, so it's an early start for you, man. I mean, especially the month of June. This show never sleeps, so we appreciate you waking up early to grace us with your presence. And you know what, man, before we get into what we're going to see today, we got to talk about yesterday. In terms of the sport, we're not surprised because we watch the sport day in, day out through the entire course of the regular season. So we see this stuff all the time in weekend series. But for the casual fans that kind of just tune in to the NCAA tournament, this is what it is. No team is ever out of it. A 4 seed that's completely obscure always has a chance. You're never out of it with metal bats. And, a lot of the times, Cal, these 1 seeds that are playing the 4s, that I feel like it's a mental thing where they're not usually throwing their number 1. They're throwing their 2 or 3 just to kind of have a get me over win. And they might not be taking this game as seriously as they should be. They're kind of looking past them. And believe it or not, people don't realize, like, all the pressure is on the 1 seed. These teams that have been the best in the country all year, that get the hosting sites, and, they have this pressure to perform. And nobody especially wants to get bounced in their own regional. And I feel like we saw that with a few teams yesterday. A couple of them lost, and many of them were on the brink of losing to just very, very out of nowhere 4 seeds.
Yeah, it's something that we as college cappers, it's something that helps separate us, honestly. But baseball is such an interesting sport. You look at some of these teams that we know as perennial powerhouses. To me, being a Cali guy, Cal State Fullerton, Long Beach, now Irvine, Santa Barbara. Those aren't teams that on the national radar people have a clue about. For one, no one's awake at 10 p.m. for first pitch to watch these things. And two, a lot of people take what are considered, the major sports of, at least collegiate-wise, and take that and assume that carries over to all of these sports. And that in its own can be a huge, huge handicapping advantage. However, like you talked about with the 1 seeds, we had Grand Canyon yesterday. I gave that out for free, actually. They are a team that is really, really good and off the radar. They can only be as good as they're allowed to be because look where they play, look who they can play. They just have to go out and prove it with wins every year and scheduling, as good a non-conference opponents as possible. They had a really favorable matchup, one of, if not the best, as playing a 1 seed. Arizona, I love Arizona. I was a Pac-12 guy since it's not around anymore. But that was a great year. That was fun. It was exciting. It got another Pac-12 team guaranteed in, and that was a big hooray. However, to me, they won their World Series already. That was enormous for them to win in a walk-off and then another walk-off to get those 2. And it was exciting. It was wild. It was fun. But certain 1 seeds like that have, 1, they have poor matchups, and 2, they come in a very pressure-filled situation or a spot they're not comfortable with. I mean, Arizona hosting a regional is not something that I would say anybody expected. And they came in against what, again, was a really good team. But to a public eye, they see an Arizona versus a Grand Canyon. Arizona should beat the crap out of this team. Obviously not the way it works. And real quickly, another one that I am not surprised on. I wish I went more with it, but ECU continues to be ECU. I said yesterday, death, taxes, and ECU in the postseason at home.
You know what, man? Evansville is actually one of the few winners I had. And you know, what's the saying? You wish you put more on him. So I went a quarter unit on Evansville at plus 220, and like, you know, that's fine. But then 3.5, I only went a half a unit. So the two nice winners were not even full unit plays; they were half units or less. And you know, ultimately, it was a great call by you at Grand Canyon. I think Grand Canyon was probably one of the most favorable 4 seeds, especially Clark Candiotti. He has been really good, but I do feel like you're right with Arizona. I didn't expect them to host. I thought they were in the back of a long line. I thought there was 3 or 4 other teams that should have hosted ahead of them. And, you know, the thing we've seen, at least for the first day, is the teams that went deep into their own home conference tournament were flat yesterday. And that has been a point of emphasis over the years. But, like, you know, this sport happens once a year, so sometimes you forget about that. You have to, like, really go into the archives. But you look at it, Duke won the ACC tournament. They were flat against UConn. Arizona won the Pac-12 tournament. They were largely flat against Grand Canyon. I think Indiana State went deep-ish into their tournament. They were flat against Illinois yesterday. Who else?
Dallas Baptist.
Dallas Baptist flat as a surfboard.
Yeah,
that was very disappointing. I'm trying to think. There's one more. ECU even went kind of deep into their home tournament, and you know there's others that we could talk about. But the point is, it just seems like these teams that play well into, you know, Friday, Saturday, or even Sunday of their conference tournament weren't really great. And honestly, South Carolina wasn't great, and they played kind of deep. LSU took them out on Saturday. That was a deep run that South Carolina made, and they frankly should have lost. James Madison had a 7-5 lead in the bottom of the 9th, 2 outs, 1 man on. Cole Messina, the hottest hitter in the country at the plate. And instead of James Madison, and I put that on the coaching, I don't put that on the pitcher. Like, the fact is, walk Cole Messina. Okay, fine. You put the winning run at plate, but nobody is hotter than Cole Messina. To me, that made absolutely 0 sense. And you know what? JMU played a great game, and because of a bad coaching call at the end of it with the game on the line, that cost them an opportunity to move into the 1-0 spot and potentially steal a game 2 against NC State. And now they're fighting for their lives, and they gave South Carolina life. So we've seen this, right? We've seen this. Even UNC yesterday was flat. UNC played somewhat deep into the ACC tournament. They relied on a grand slam walk-off against LIU, a team that needed 2 more outs to close out a huge 4 seed, upsetting the 1. And real quick, Cal, just to kind of go back to this Grand Canyon, Arizona game, Grand Canyon was a team I really liked last year. Grand Canyon was a team I had a little taste on to win the College World Series. Not necessarily thinking they could, but I definitely thought they had enough juice to make the field of 8. Jacob Wilson, Homer Bush, you know, Daniel Avisho's a dog. And you know what, man? Like, that was, in terms of price, one of the smaller money line values you were going to get on a 4 seed, but that's a great call by you. I'll tell you why I didn't think Grand Canyon was going to win yesterday. It's because they weren't throwing Danny Avdia. I know he's been hurt this year and he doesn't have a lot of innings, but that's still their guy. And you know what, man? GCU found a way to get it done. And a couple of these teams just completely flipped the brackets on their head.
And that one back kind of right into what you were talking about. I mean, Arizona could not have played any more games, let alone any more stressful of a route to get to that point. I mean, beating Oregon State in a walk-off, you know, and then doing the same thing in the conference tournament. They played as long as they could in as many stressful games as they could. And that takes a toll to then flip it right back around and go against a team that, you know, is very good. Grand Canyon is, you know, the most underrated 4 seed, I would say, probably in terms of perception. They're a very good team with great depth and experience, like you said already. And yeah, I think that it was interesting to see. I mean, that was one of them. And we look at, you know, just what yesterday could have been. I mean, LSU is back-to-back home runs away from getting knocked by Wofford. Wofford was the better team. They just couldn't finish the thing. They couldn't get those couple extra runs they needed. LSU was primed to be taken out. They did not want to win that game. Like, they were not going all out. You could just see it. And they looked a little tired too, honestly. And that was another one. I mean, they didn't win that, but they played all the way into the SEC conference. We were both surprised with Vanderbilt's situation yesterday.
Wow.
I don't know what we talked about that last week. That was the first thing we talked about, was that it was like, you deserve what you got for that one. Like, that was ridiculous to.
And you know what? And I want to point this out. People were coming at me. Like, J.D. Thompson had been really good down the stretch, and that was like another weapon for them. But like, Tim Corbin should know better. Tim Corbin is arguably he's the Bill Belichick of college baseball. That guy is as brilliant of a college baseball mind, I think, that we've seen in this sport. This guy has been there a million times. And like, I don't know what he was thinking putting J.D. Thompson. I understand he was hot as of late, but the fact is you have Bryce Cunningham, a sophomore, a guy who has been predominantly the Friday night guy for Vanderbilt for most of the year. And I get it. Cunningham on the road this year hasn't been as good. That's all fine. But at the end of the day, like, stats don't necessarily matter when you get to this point. Like, this is experience. J.D. Thompson was not going against your run-of-the-mill mid-major team, even though Coastal has been a huge disappointment this year. And I will be the first one to say it, because I had a lot of hopes in Coastal. They were my preseason Final Eight team. I had a little ticket on them to win it all. I thought Coastal was going to avenge last year's undoing against Ryder and Duke in their own region. And you know what? Like, this was a really, really poor execution to not throw Cunningham in that game. And listen, if Cunningham gets his titties lit, so be it. You went out with the guy that you've been riding on Friday nights all season long, with Carter Holton going on Saturday. Now you have to go in an elimination game. I mean, they should beat High Point, but to me, that was a really bad decision. And you know what? I got to say, like, it is what it is. I think Coastal Carolina is definitely capable of making the run. We're going to talk more about that game today. But Sunday Puncher 2009 gave a really good note. Thank you for the note. SEC 2-9 against the run line yesterday. And if it wasn't for a couple walk-offs with Mississippi State and LSU, the SEC was going to be in real trouble yesterday in terms of just outright wins. It was not a pretty day for the most dominant college conference. And Cal, real quick, you can answer this for me. What is it with the teams that are playing deep into their conference tournaments? Because, you know, if you're playing on Saturday and Sunday, you're getting 1 day less of rest, maybe even 2, depending on if you played on Sunday. So maybe it matters a bit for pitching, but these guys that are throwing their aces that are on full rest, it wasn't the pitching that those teams had that let them down. It was the offense. You think the offense is just the offense, and offense isn't something that should be slumping from 1 week to the next, because, you know, the arms are typically the ones that might be a little bit tired and fatigued, but it seems like these offenses, some of them just kind of blew their load last week.
It's interesting sometimes with college, certain teams hit better at home. Certain teams seem like with the less pressure on the road. It's funny how natural talent sometimes takes over. You'll watch some of these games and it's like, you do forget they are 18, 19, 20-year-old kids still, and the pitchers do get paid to play as well. So sometimes you do got to give credit where credit is due. But sometimes it's interesting. You'll see that one guy get that first big hit, and then everybody takes a breath and they get going. I was very big on Arkansas getting an opportunity this weekend to get that offense going, because we knew Arkansas's biggest problem is they can't hit for shit in terms of, you know, they play in a great conference, but that offense is holding them back from being, you know, absolute elite level with what is a great pitching staff, if one of not the best. Instead, they blow an 8-0 lead yesterday. Thank goodness they came back and handled business. But, I mean, talk about concerning, to say the least. How many arms did they go through yesterday as well? I mean, you stay in the winner's bracket, you're fine. But
they're throwing Gabe Gackle, their star closer. They're throwing him in the 6th inning. Like,
It was,
came back. Well, now this is a problem here, right? Because now here's the thing. I don't know what the situation with the Arkansas game is, because they still need to determine the winner between Kansas State and Louisiana Tech. And honestly, the weather was pretty cooperative yesterday. But now you're going to have to rely on Hagen Smith to be Hagen Smith and go throw at least 7 innings. McIntyre pitched a lot yesterday. Gatkel pitched a lot. Honestly, I turned the game off after like the 7th inning. Once I saw Arkansas took a big lead again, I was out. And honestly, I was at dinner, a family dinner yesterday. So from like 6 p.m. Eastern to like 9:30, I really wasn't watching a ton of college. So I apologize if I missed like a couple of other notes. But that's an interesting one today.
There's a few. I mean, did not expect to see some of these matchups in the losers bracket, but that's what you love to see. I mean, it also sets up, again, nobody's ever out of this thing. So I think some of these spots today, there is interesting value in some of these, bigger dogs.
And before we get to the first game, which is going to be maybe the best elimination that we're going to see, real quick, Cal, teams that started 0-1 that have the best chance to climb out of it and advance out of the region.
I mean, you'd have to assume probably the winner of who we're about to talk about right now with the ECU game. If they're able to climb out, being at home is always going to help you no matter what. So I think that is probably one of, if not the biggest. Let me just look as I kind of roll through it real quick. I mean, I still think, I am obviously big on Florida State, but we do know what Alabama has to offer at times. They can get hot. They could figure it out. It's going to get into a slugfest, I feel like, eventually in Florida. We know what happens there. We know what happens with that weather, that heat, those bats. It does, metal bats anywhere do it. So you always worry about a team that can get hot offensively like that. Other than that, I don't have a lot of faith in, Arizona. I never expected them to come out of it anyways. So that's not a big shocker in the slightest to me. But, I don't have a lot of, I guess, surprise in terms of who's not coming out in my mind right now. I think everybody is still kind of in a correct place where I thought they'd be.
I would say, in my opinion, the best 0-1 team with the best chance to advance is going to be Duke. I was very disappointed with the Duke Blue Devils. It's been an up and down year for them. When they're on, they look like they're as good as anybody, and when they're off, it's ugly. And the pitching was fine yesterday. They only let up 4 runs against UConn. UConn, I mean, listen, UConn has always been one of those mid-major Big East teams that can go into a tournament and match up with anybody and give them problems. They almost took out Stanford in their own, I think it was super regional a couple of years ago. But, if you're the Duke Blue Devils, this is a region you had a very, very good chance to win. And now you have to win 4 straight games. And, here's the thing, right? If we're playing it strategically, only Arkansas, I think, has deeper and better pitching than Duke front to back. So you throw Santucci today against Oral Roberts. If you get that win, then you got to win 3 more games. They have a lot of arms. They have Kyle Johnson they can throw. They have Talon they can throw. And then they can just go what they did against Coastal last year and just go bullpen games. I do think sometimes, and I was talking to my buddy about this morning, is like sometimes when you don't have the guy, and you have to rely on like 5 different pitchers coming in and throwing like 2 innings here, 3 innings there, 1 inning, 2 innings, 1 inning. Like it's a lot of moving pieces, and like you need everybody to be in sync in order to pull that off. Like it's like a Ferrari. When everything's clicking on all cylinders, it's beautiful. But if one thing is off, then the entire machine gets thrown into disarray. But you know what? It's not the pitching concern for me. It's Duke's offense that has a lot of talent, Cal. And I'm a little surprised, but I think if there is a team, especially given the field that they're in, I'm not that impressed with Oklahoma. I do think the Duke Blue Devils would be the best chance considering the amount of depth they have in terms of pitching.
Yeah, I agree. And like we said, something to be said as well when we talk about the offenses going a little stagnant. there is something to be said with a hitter's eye and the difference in playing, whether you're an East Coast team now playing in the Midwest. And there are big differences for only having really a day or two of getting used to what you're seeing. You're also getting to face arms you've never faced. So there is a lot of advantage to a pitcher first time through. And, that does have some carryover. It's both teams are dealing with it unless you're facing the home squad. So there's definitely that to be to be said. But yeah, no, I definitely agree with you. I like Duke today. I've liked them from the get-go. I did think there was a little fear with coming off of that many stressful games, getting that championship with the ACC. So I do think today is a good bounce back spot, like you said, and they do have an opportunity. Because we know they're going to have to come through that losers bracket, they will need some depth on the pitching side, and they have it.
So Duke is plus 550 to win the region right now on FanDuel. I personally wouldn't take that just because even though they're probably going to be a favorite in a lot of the games that they play, I just feel like winning 4 games and you're only getting that. I feel like if Duke was more like 8-1, I'd probably take it. For anybody that thinks that they're going to pull the Coastal Carolina, who was down 0-1 in 2016, found their way out of their region, and then ended up winning the whole thing, the Blue Devils right now are 100-1 to win it all. And if there was a team that could do it, I do think it is Duke, although they'd have to go against my Florida State Seminoles, who, by the way, really quick, I was very critical. I was very nervous, and I was a little upset when they announced they were throwing Carson Dorsey yesterday. Give Carson Dorsey his flowers. That kid proved me wrong. That kid was phenomenal. I'm a little upset Link Jarrett didn't give him a shot to go for the complete game, but Carson Dorsey, no joke, could have potentially saved Florida State's season. And I'm not being dramatic because say Dorsey had a start like he did in the ACC tournament where he goes 1 or 2 innings, he's up 5 runs. He's out of the game. Florida State's in a hole against Stetson, who's no pushover, who's a tough little mid-major program. Then they have to go use a bunch of bullpen arms to try and piece that game together, especially if they lose that game. Now they're down 0-1. Now they need Jamie Arnold to go 8 innings basically today in a win, and then they got to win 3 more after that. And considering Cam Leiter's not throwing this weekend via Link Jarrett, I don't know if they would have had it enough to get that done. So bravo to Carson Dorsey. You know what, man? Like I'm very critical, but when you perform, I'll be the first one to say, you know what, I was wrong, and I'm happy to be wrong in that situation. So kudos to Carson Dorsey. But Cal, I know you're on a bit of a time crunch here. Let's get to the games, and let's start with one of the best pitching matchups we're going to see in the entire tournament. And we're only going to see one of these gentlemen pitch in college for the last time ever today. That is Wake Forest, Chase Burns against ECU with Trey Savage. We've been waiting on this matchup all weekend. Everybody assumed this matchup will be in the 1-0 spot, but as college baseball happens, it is in the 0-1 spot. The loser will go home. The starting pitchers, he's going to probably be top 10. I think Savage is definitely top 10 capable. Burns is maybe top 5, top 3. Who you got here, Cal?
I don't like the value, but I do like Wake Forest. I think that better overall squad. The pressure is, if it wasn't ever before, it's on ECU now. You lose the opener at home. You do not want to be the first team to go to and barbecue in your own tournament. I like Wake. I underperformed this year, in my opinion, but I do think that if I was going to have to take a side, I would go with the Demon Deacons. I lean, it's low, but I also kind of lean the under 9 too. I think that we do get some rhythm. It's going to be a day game too. Can definitely be a little bit tougher on the hitters if these guys get some rhythm going. And I wouldn't be surprised if they get off to a good start, they just go match for match, inning for inning, and expect this one to be pretty low.
I have Wake as official play, and it's simply because Chase Burns. Chase Burns has been out of this world this year. He's on a five straight quality start streak, and during those 5 games, he's gone 6 innings twice and 7 innings 3 times. He's got at least 13 strikeouts in every one of those games. He's got 15 strikeouts 4 times. He's got double-digit punches in all but 3 starts this year, a 2.46 ERA. This kid is unreal, bro. 184 Ks, only 26 walks in 95 innings. And I've been saying this a lot over the last – honestly, I said this last July when Burns transferred. I said, and I believe this, Chase Burns might have a higher ceiling in the MLB than Paul Skeens. And the way Paul Skeens is getting drooled over by people who just discovered him in, like, the mainstream media, like, what do you think is going to happen when they see Chase Burns next year? It's going to be the same thing. And Burns, I see Burns a little bit more Strasburg than Skeens, just based on pitching styles. Burns max effort guy basically every time. I think Burns' slider is way better than Skeens. I think the only person in all of baseball, Cal, to have a better slider than Chase Burns is Dylan Cease. That 12-6 slider. But in any case for this game, Wake Forest they are the better team. I think they have the better bats. I don't think they're going to get shut out or silenced 2 days in a row. And when you have Chase Burns on the mound, you need three runs. That's it. That's all I think it's going to take for Wake Forest to win this game. And, Nick Kurtz has got to be the guy that steps up. Wake Forest is the team that made the run last year deep into Omaha. And at the end of the day, I'm a huge fan of Trey Savage. I really am. He's one of my favorite players in college baseball. I think that kid is destined for superstardom at the major league level. I really do. But East Carolina has been a team I was afraid of all year because they're very top heavy. They have 5 or 6 really good players, and the fall off is a little bit more on the significant side. And offensively, they haven't been a team that you're afraid of. They have a couple dogs like Carter Cunningham, Jacob Starling, Jacob Jacobs-Cowart. I get it, but unless ECU can attack Burns the way the teams that have beat him, and that's via the home run ball, and you can hit a home run out of the jungle. I think this is Wake all the way, man. I'll lay the 160, and you know what? If this is Chase Burns' last start in college baseball, I'm going to go down swinging on the guy that I followed for his entire career and I've made a lot of money on.
Yeah, the jungle is not very vast. It is a small that plays a bandbox. It's like a line drive with some topspin. Still finds a way to get over that short little porch. But yeah, I mean, it'll be wild. It'll be a fun game. That's such a good environment too. So that'll be a fun one to start the day off with.
And I apologize. I just noticed this. I guess I didn't change the ECU number. ECU's plus 124 to Wake's 160. So I apologize for that. Let's get to one of the most appealing 0-1 matchups along with Wake Forest ECU. I don't think many people expected this. I actually have a ticket on both of these teams to win the region. So one of them will be going home today because I didn't think West Virginia or Grand County was going to win the region. And that's Dallas Baptist as a dog against Arizona in the 0-1 Elim game. DBU burned Ryan Johnson yesterday, which is a big swing and miss. Ryan Johnson wasn't good, but he wasn't bad. 4 runs over 6 innings plus. The bullpen did a good job, and they just couldn't score. They made Derek Clark look like prime day Cy Young. And Derek Clark has been going like complete games all year. I think this is his 5th game going at least 9 innings. One of them might have been extras because it only had 3 complete games going into yesterday. But I think it's going to be Jerron DeBerry for DBU, and I'd imagine it's Jackson Kent for Arizona. Who do you think's advancing here?
I was concerned. I mean, coming into this, I felt real confident in terms of what I'd seen from DBU's offense in the past weekend. Not as much the power, but the consistency top to bottom in that lineup that just looked like everything was batting practice. And yes, they weren't facing, what is in Arizona and these tier of, quality. But going into this thing, I like DBU to win this bracket. I had DBU to win this thing at 240 originally when it came out on Monday. And I still think that DBU is, live in terms of having a chance to get themselves back in. But in terms of this game today, I just think, and I want to double check it right now. And what is it right now? Is it still? I still think that Arizona is going to find a way to take this. This to me is having the advantage of playing at home. I think that they'll find a way back. I think they've won too many big games, and talk about, the biggest game of the year, win or go home. I think that Arizona finds a way. I think those Dallas Baptist bats right now, if the ball's not flying out of the yard, I think they're struggling. I see too much lift on every single guy, though. What worked last weekend isn't going to work if, you're not hitting it square, you're not hitting it with the correct conditions. And the ball just didn't look like it was flying yesterday, like I expected there. So I lean the consistency with Arizona. I think we see a little bit better depth with them. I like what they've done all year. I think that comes through today.
Here's the problem. And I looked at this going into yesterday, and I still took it anyway because it wasn't that dramatic. Baptist isn't as good as lefties against righties. Going into yesterday, it was about a 16, 17-point difference on average. But DB was still batting 280 against lefties, 297, I believe, against righties. The OPS was a difference. But I'm like, you know what? I looked at it. Their star players, Chayton Krause, Grant Jay, Miguel Santos, they were all really good against lefties. And I will say this, DBU's offense, they ran themselves out of an inning. They got picked off, I think, in the fourth with runners on the corners, 2 outs. I forget who got picked off. I don't know what he was doing. I forget who it was. But in any case, DBU's offense was a little unlucky yesterday. They barreled up several balls, and they just found gloves. That's I'm not a big analytics guy, but expected batting average was probably okay for DBU yesterday. I don't think their offense gets shut down twice in a row. Jackson Kent is a lefty, so maybe there is an advantage there. I don't officially have anything played out here because, like I said, I have futures on both of them. I have a future at 90-1 for DBU to win it all. So I really don't see much of a way for me to really monetize that ticket, because even if I bet Arizona, maybe I can make the stake back. But if they lose, then DBU still got to win 3 more games. So I don't really see a way for me to monetize that in a way that I feel is fair. But unofficially, not playing it, I would lean DBU. I just don't think they're going to go out like that. DBU's been a better team, in my opinion, than Arizona all year. I know Arizona won the Pac-12 and they won the Pac-12 tournament, but it's Pac-12. They didn't really beat anybody of note. And Dallas Baptist did beat Arizona narrowly in the Frisco Classic early March. So I would lean with Duran DeBerry in an elimination game against Jackson Kent. And ultimately, Anthony Susak had a rough year, but he's been a lot better as of late for the closer role for Zona. But, at the end of the day, I think this is going to be one of those 5-4, 6-5 type of games. I would lean here DBU, but it is not official just because personally what I have in my futures portfolio, it doesn't really make sense for me to make anything.
I couldn't take Arizona if I wanted to because I'm already on DBU long term. So I'll sit on. Yeah. I did circle it yesterday before it all came out. I want to see what this total comes out at when they do release that. If you've seen it, I don't see it yet released for their total, but I'm interested to see what that is. As I looked at it, it's going to be over 100 degrees today in Arizona there. So little wind, very hot.
Yeah.
Maybe the runs do come today.
That is tough conditions. All right, Florida State. This isn't as actionable, but I just feel like talk about it because it's a 1-0 game. FSU, Jamie Arnold Day against UCF. I believe it's going to be Ben Vespi because UCF threw Dom Stagliano yesterday. Vespi's been okay. He's mid 4.5-ish ERA, but this is Jamie Arnold Day, guys. Jamie Arnold has been a top 4 pitcher in the country this year. He's the guy I think along with a lot of other people that follow the sport, have as the number 1 arm off the board next summer. And you know what, man, FSU had a great day yesterday. They barely used any bullpen arm. I think Oxford came in for 10 or less pitches because Dorsey was just I try to keep a clean program, but he was a dog yesterday, Carson Dorsey. So I think Arnold and FSU get this done, move to 2-0. The Florida State Seminoles are, I think, are my second biggest position outside of Mississippi State this year to go all the way. And I think Florida State wins this. I think maybe it's an appealing parlay leg at -250 with a Texas A&M something along those lines. You get a couple minus 250s or less and parlay them for like a small plus money profit. So I would lean with Florida State. You're taking one of the premier pitchers in college baseball. And, Florida State's bats at 7 runs was honestly a disappointment yesterday. And I think they're going to come ready to play this afternoon, Cal.
Yeah, I mean, the most valuable player yesterday was the son in the game for Florida State. That left fielder wants to go, and I felt so bad for that guy because, I mean, if you've ever played, there's literally nothing you can do. If you get it caught, and those skies are there, it is bright, and the sun is high, and the sky is high, trying to catch a fly ball, like especially as a West Coast guy going, and I played in North Carolina for college, and those skies take a long time to get used to. It is like looking through a different lens when you see stuff. So I felt terrible for that guy. However,
I did it because you know what, we got business to do. I was screaming against my alma mater, St. John's, against the Mississippi State game last night. So you know what? I actually had a couple of friends of mine that I went to college with, like, bro, really? Come on. I'm like, dude, you tell me how much money I got Mississippi State, and then you tell me that I should be rooting for St. John's. I don't think so.
Exactly. But yeah, that was that was a big one for, like you said, for them to not only get out of unscathed, but also get such a good start. And I could argue that today is as important as the championship game, because if they get not only a win but a great start, they're one win away from this and getting clean through, getting to reset everything, having a week off, knowing they're still going to host the super regional. And that's huge. I mean, that's massive, especially with what we know is going on with pitching staff and this time of the year in general, making sure everybody's healthy. They don't have to go anywhere. There's a lot to it. So I like Florida State, obviously a lot. I have a ton with them too. We got them preseason. We took them 100-1. So I like that. We have them 25-1 to get to the World Series. So it's, a lot there as well for it. So I would love to at least be able to hedge a little bit next weekend, knowing that as soon as they get there, it's going to be a good spot, hopefully against some enormous underdog who I don't need to play too much against. So that's definitely a game today that I will be very interested in. And I will have, some parlay action with them.
I was a little upset I didn't take Florida State at 100-1 this year. The reason was I wanted to see them, how they were going to be pitching-wise at first, just because, like, Arnold Leiter, Jamie Arnold, I needed to just see to get a little bit more convinced, and the same thing with Cam Leiter. I knew they had bats, but, 100-1, I thought this team could potentially, be a team that was, like, flirting with Omaha 8. They were actually they were a team I was high on coming into the year. I had them as a small ticket for to win the ACC, because I'm like, year 2 under Link Jarrett, they have talent, like, but 100-1, I regret not grabbing that. I mean, I have a lot of Florida State, but I always love getting those 100-1s. I really do. That's why I got Mississippi State. But all right, I know you're a little crunch for time, so we'll get moving here.
I got like 10 or 15 more minutes. We can go. Yeah, no worries.
All right. We got LSU in a coin flip at UNC. It's going to be Shea Sprague against Luke Holman. Cal, LSU was a team that I took a little ticket on. I wasn't buying UNC all year. They got lucky to win that game, but LSU did as well. Holman has been awesome as of late. Gage Jump was fantastic yesterday. I think, especially considering how well LSU has been playing over the last month or so, I think this is an LSU spot with a much better pitching advantage.
Yeah, if North Carolina plays LSU yesterday, I think North Carolina probably handles them because of the travel, like we talked about, everything that's gone into that, versus UNC being out early. They knew they were going to be hosting. They had nothing to worry about. I mean, you get the MVP performance of the season yesterday with your starter to keep that game even close while LSU couldn't do anything offensively. So that was enormous. You wonder, was that the kickstart they needed? And now is LSU like, all right, let's go. Now we got through that crap game. Offensively, we can get our feet back on the ground. And yes, I completely agree with you. We did it last week too. We liked them to win the tournament. They didn't quite get there, but I took them again. I took them at 16-1 again to win this thing. And I think that if they get even remotely reasonable pitching, which I don't think is asking for too much, I think they win this game, handily. I think that if they can keep themselves around, not give up the big inning. We know that offense is just a couple pitches away from an explosion. I mean, you saw what they did yesterday just in terms of solo home runs. That home run that he put out to right center field, that looked like he popped it up to like a flare to the second baseman. The strength is unreal.
Yeah. I want to say I'm mad at everybody because I was eyeing LSU 55-1 right before the tournament, right before the SEC tournament. And I was thinking about taking them just because it was like, okay, let me protect just in case LSU gets hot again and get to the tournament. Because actually LSU was a preseason Omaha team for me. I had out of Florida, Wake, LSU, all the teams that made the deep run last year, I actually had LSU as the one team that was going to get there. But, you know, I wasn't 100% sure they were in. I wanted to see them beat Georgia, and they did. And then, you know, I was still like on the fence if they were going to get it. I had a feeling they were probably like 70-30 in favor of, but I was like, okay, let me see. If they beat Kentucky, I believe they're in. And then as soon as they blow out Kentucky, 55-1 was the highest. Everything got slashed to 25 or less, and then quickly got 20 or less, and everything's now like 16 or less. It's insane, everybody that just grabbed LSU last week. So I hate you guys for taking a ticket away from me. And, you know, you're going to say, well, you should have bet it sooner. True, but I wanted to just make sure.
Hindsight's 2020. I never tell anybody that.
Always 2020. Okay, this is actually one of my favorite games of the day. Clemson versus Coastal. Confirmation, Eric Bakich showing those big balls and putting his best starter, Sunday guy, Aiden Knock, in the starting role today against Coastal Carolina, who I believe is going with Henry Wecker. Henry has been really good the last two starts. Quality starts, 6 innings, 2 runs, and 6 shutty. Aiden Knock's been a dog all year. He had a couple bad outings, but, you know, Clemson's a big favorite here. And the thing is, Clemson can't keep getting away with this. 25 comeback wins. They can't keep getting away with it. I know Aiden Knock's been good. And, you know, here's the thing, right? Coastal Carolina was slumping so much in the second half. That's why I gave up on them. That was a team I really did believe in. And, you know, I think if they might have realized they don't have to hit a home run to win. Their lineup is really, really talented, and it's deep. They just got to move the line. Get a guy on, base hit, another base hit, walk like that. You don't need to have 3-4 home runs to win the game. And like, even though Aiden Knox is good as he is, Coastal Carolina, if they play their game and they don't try to swing for the fences every single time and just focus on getting on base, being situationally sound, I think this is a game they could steal at a nice plus money banger.
Yeah, it's a layoff spot for me for those exact reasons. Coastal's catching fire at the right time. They're exactly in that boat, how I feel with Florida. I got Florida at 60-1 too, just kind of as the same feeling. If they catch fire, they're a team you do not want to face right now. Coastal's playing well. They took advantage of, you know, what we mentioned earlier. Regardless of who was on the hill, you know, they hit the shit out of the ball yesterday, and that can really carry over well. And we've seen what Coastal's done in the past in the postseason, getting hot. I don't disagree with you in the slightest. I'm pleased as can be that Clemson got through yesterday. I had them in a little fun little money line parlay, but that was entirely too much work. They did not look comfortable. And honestly, to me, I felt similar to ECU. I think they are overrated, not overrated, but I think that they are not worth the value of what you're seeing from them. I think they are still continually priced too high. And I just don't know if there's teams that have it. Tennessee's one of those teams. Maybe they don't win it, but there's teams that you just look at, like LSU. They just 1v1. If you see certain guys, you're like, those guys have it. Maybe they're not going to beat you today, but I want him now in this position. You know, certain teams are good versus certain players are good. And I just worry sometimes with this Clemson team. Can they find those consistent guys to step up and make those, you know, big at bats, big pitches? I worry a little bit. I do like, you know, I guess I would lean Coastal Carolina. I'm talking myself into it a little bit with the value of plus 155 or higher. I do lean it a little bit.
There's 162s on FanDuel. That's the reason why I'm taking Coastal. I think it's too big of a number. And you know, if Coastal gets a good performance from Henry Wecker and he goes 6 innings, 2 runs today, and, you know, their offense could put up 5, 6, I think they're capable of it. I think, you know, Coastal Carolina left a sour taste in my mouth because of the second half that they had. But, at the end of the day, this is a very talented team, and
Yeah.
they want to give their skipper a nice send off for an illustrious career. All right, this is the game I'm watching closest today. It is my Mississippi State Bulldogs at a nice little plus 120 against Virginia, the 1-2 matchup of the 1-0 spots. It is my guy Jurangelo Sainja against Evan Blanco. Jurangelo has been he's been out of this world improvement from last year. Jurangelo is a guy that I think if he has a couple good starts in the month of June, if Mississippi State gets out of this region, Jurangelo has a good day today. And Jurangelo in the Super Regionals has a really good start. I think we're going to possibly see this guy go at the end of the first round. I think there's a very good possibility. Mississippi State's got to cut it out with the walk-offs. It's fun. It's cool. But first of all, I can't take it anymore. Number one. Number two, you can't always wait until the 11th hour to try and to do something. Like St. John's is the team they should have handled. Like St. John's is a good program. Don't get me wrong. I went to school there. They got some dogs. But Mississippi State's pitching has been a question. Evan Blanco has been their best starter. I wouldn't even say he's that good. And their offense is really good, but Cal Steven was a monster yesterday, 8 innings, 2 runs. They saved their bullpen for the most part. So I think if Jurangelo can go out there, give 6 innings strong today, and maybe use a couple arms, I think Mississippi State's got a really good shot here, Cal. I do think it's too big of a number. It's a team I've been riding on all season. I'm not backing down now. I think they have the pitching advantage. Mississippi State, man, if they could score 6 runs here, I think they're in really good shape. And you know what? Dakota Jordan's walk-off yesterday, maybe that was the fire he needed lit under his ass to get going. That was a monster moment. For a player as talented as Dakota Jordan, Cal, that's the kind of moment that can ignite you. And when he gets going and he's hot, he can carry this whole team. It is a much, much different lineup when Dakota Jordan is doing his thing.
We talked about, having a team versus having a guy, and maybe they just got their guy back, and that can make such a difference because then everybody around him feels that same thing. He's figured it out. Now he's got it. Either they're going to pitch around to him, have more runners on base, or you're going to get better pitches to hit because they don't want to face him. It changes everything. Mississippi State kind of a victim of their own environment. They play in such a great conference that they lost a lot of battles this season, but at the same time, getting into the regionals and all, it puts them in a great position to have, experience. I'm not extremely high on Virginia. I never really have been as well. They fit that same kind of mold to me of teams I just can't trust. They go stagnant offensively, and there's big problems. I mean, they scored 4 runs yesterday, concerning. And
who was that?
Virginia.
Yeah, against Penn. They should have lost that game. I wish they did, actually.
That concerns you big time. Do they take that as, okay, we got through this, as all right, now we battle, or thank God we got through this? It's interesting how it can go. But I like the way that, above all else, I like the way Mississippi State plays. They grind it out. They're dirty. They're scrappy. I like what I saw. And obviously they can still have the big boys that can take you out of the yard. But yeah, I mean, I don't mind the plus 120 or a little bit higher like you've seen as well.
Yeah, and I just want to point out real quick before we move on, not only did Dakota Jordan hit the walk-off yesterday, but St. John's intentionally walked David Mershon with the runner on third and 2 outs to get to Dakota Jordan. And I understand it because Dakota had been struggling mightily. But the level of disrespect Dakota Jordan must have felt like, are you kidding me? This guy's going to intentionally walk David Mershon to get to me with the game on the line? Okay. Yeah, I think it's not just the walk-off. It's the disrespect. And you know what? That's the kind of shit that says, Daddy's home, I'm back, and we're going to the friggin' chip. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So we need that. I need that fight for Mississippi State. Come on, make Daddy proud. Come on, I got a lot of Fazuls on you. Let's go. Pitching's looking great. Range. I've been believing in you since day one. Gotta keep it going for me one time. All right, another game I think is very appealing in the sense that, I wonder if we're seeing an upset here. It's the 1-2. Georgia barely escaped against Army yesterday, which is a surprise. The over 13 cash, I did think it was a little light. And, Georgia used Leighton Finley didn't have a great start. Brian Zeldin out of the pen. I don't understand why they continue to go to this guy. He's not good. And they throw him 90 pitches. So, I really don't understand it. But nevertheless, I think it's probably going to be Colton Smith. I don't know if Charlie Goldstein's back. I don't know what's been going on with him. He's got to be hurt, but I don't know the severity of the injury. I know he's missed some time. But either way, man, do you think UNCW can steal one from Georgia?
I mean, being a Carolina dude in general, I always have a soft spot for all of the UNC teams. But I mean, tell me why they don't. I mean, look what they did yesterday. They go out and dominate a Georgia Tech team that at times looked pretty damn good too. And Georgia is another one of those teams that, yes, you're hosting. That's fine. That's cute. But I don't think they're nearly as good of. Let's just put it this way: they might make Omaha, but they're not going to win Omaha. They could be one of those teams that get that correct bracket to fit them through it, but I don't think that they have nearly enough depth, especially in terms of their pitching. I mean, they get into these slugfests endlessly, and that's not going to work long term. You're going to face enough pitching that Condon can't hit every single inning. I mean, I wish he could because the guy's incredible. But I do think that they're going to get in trouble. I worry about it a little bit today. UNCW is obviously playing hot. They're in a nice run right now. I wish it was a little higher than 180, to be honest with you, if I was going to get UNCW right now. But, I mean, we'll see what the run line comes out. I mean, let me see. Is it out yet I haven't seen the Georgia run line.
While we're looking for that, let me tell you something. UNCW, we're starting to get some run lines and totals out for more games, but really it's just for the early games. We haven't gotten them for the really good 1-0s. But UNCW plays in the same conference as Northeastern. Northeastern was a team I really believed in as a long shot, like a super long shot this year. I mean, I could say it now because they're out, but if Northeastern had won the College World Series, I had over 100. I had about 110 grand on them to win the College World Series. I didn't bet that, but that's what I would have returned. So I was really disappointed, and I was following the CAA all year, and UNCW, College of Charleston were just duking it out at the top, and kind of better than Northeastern. And UNCW, man, they got a really great bat in Tanner Thatch. This is a guy that could. If he gets on at the right spot with a few guys on base and it's a close game and he can put one over the fence, man. And I really think that UNCW is a little live here. I do worry about that. I think this is a bad number. I feel like UNCW should be a little bit bigger. Georgia they're on upset alert. I just don't think that the Bulldogs are that good, like you said. And their formula is not going to work forever. Teams that win the College World Series are teams that do not rely on the home run ball and teams that can't pitch. Every team that has won the College World Series has been able to at least have one or two really good starters. They have a lineup that can get on, get over, get in. They have a couple home run hitters, but that's not the formula. So I think Georgia is a team that maybe isn't a parlay leg today, possibly. Otherwise I'm probably going to stay away because Georgia having a really tough battle with Army yesterday, I don't think that was like day one regional hosting nerves. I think that's what we could see a lot from Georgia, playing in these tough games where if they're playing better competition, they're on the hook. All right, Cal, give me the next start here. This is a really good 1-2 with NC State at the dog at home against South Carolina. I believe it is Garrett Gainey for the Cox and Dom Fritton for NC State. Lefty-lefty matchup. Any thoughts?
I mean, this one's going to be, like we said, South Carolina's got to figure it out earlier. They cannot keep doing this over and over and over again. I've liked NC State. One of my ex-coaches, his son plays on NC State, so I've enjoyed watching and following. Serrano is
Eli
great.
Serrano?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, his dad coached me back in the day. He was a catcher for the Giants way back when. So great guy. And it's cool to see his son. It's scary because I remember his son being out there, this big. So now it's like, oh God, this is crazy to see now. But yeah, it's fun to see it come full circle. It's hard for me not to lean the over with NC State lately. Seems like they end up getting into more of these slugfests. However, this is one I just don't have a strong feel either way on. I want to lean NC State because I like them at home. I think that they've been playing well, and I worry about what happened with South Carolina. Yes, they won yesterday, but that had to go right a few ways for that thing to come to fruition. And, I just, if I had to, I guess, twist my arm, I would lean NC State. I do like the Wolfpack a little bit more in this one.
NC State's my pick today. I think a dog at home in their own region. South Carolina was a team that played deep into last week. I don't think South Carolina is that good. I think they're good, but they're not that good. They, if Cole Messina is not on this team, where are they? What happens if Cole Messina got hurt and missed all these games that they've played over the last few weeks? Where are they? I don't think they're anywhere. I think South Carolina has gotten relatively lucky to be in situations at the end of the game where like Cole Messina can bail them out. Like Cole Messina is absolutely playing his way into possibly a top 20 pick this summer, especially being a catcher that can hit. But I'm going to go with NC State. Garrett Gainey for the Cox has been pretty solid this year. As of late, though, he hasn't been that great. He's been hittable. Dom Fritton's a guy that's had a rough year. He's had a few really bad blowout outings, but he's coming off a pretty good start last week. I feel like Fritton's going to be able to do enough to keep his team in the game. And you know what, man? Like at the end of the day, NC State's got a great offense. I think they have a better offense in South Carolina. Their offense is deeper. You got Petrie and Messina for South Carolina. Those are really the guys. You have a couple other producers, but like they don't strike fear like Petrie and Messina do. So I'm going to go to NC State as a home dog. And also not to mention, like I picked NC State to be the regional winner here. So that has to really go hand in hand if they're going to do that. All right. A 1-0 game that I don't really think many people expected is Evansville VCU. I think Evansville's got the advantage in starting pitching. Christian Gordon, I believe, threw for VCU yesterday. He threw a gem against Wake Forest in that shutout game. I don't have an official play, but I'd probably lean Evansville. I really like their offense. I think, Kenton Deverman was fantastic yesterday against East Carolina. That was why I went with Evansville, because I thought they had a really good opportunity with him. They have I apologize, I'm escaping the name, but they have a good starter, I think, throwing today or slated to throw. So I would go with Evansville if I was taking a side here, Cal.
Yeah, I would too. They showed me a lot yesterday, winning that kind of game. They were winning the game. They were winning the game that we just talked about. Every other team couldn't win. They took out not only a top seed on the road, but they did it in a low-scoring affair. It wasn't this slugfest. That shows me a lot. A team that we mentioned earlier can play small ball right now is big. You let the other team screw it up a lot of the time, and you're getting consistent pitchers. I mean, I do Korean baseball on the regular, and more often than not, it's basically who screws up less, who walks less than 12 guys, who doesn't make 2 errors, who can get a bunt down. Those little things make a big difference. And I mean, a team that couldn't be any more confident, you come in, beat the 1 seed at their house, come back, you've got consistent pitching, guys that know what their role is offensively. I like Evansville again today. We took him yesterday, like we said, at plus 3.5. But I like them today. I think they can. There's no reason to me that they can't take care of this game too and get there and find a way into the finals.
I need to confirm what the pitching matchup is just before if I put that play out. And little action on North Carolina as they're out to 135. So people are believing in the Tar Heels. LSU's now plus money. Makes me like them that much more. Keep fading LSU. Okay, Oklahoma State. This is an intriguing matchup. Oklahoma State's just under $2, and Florida's plus 150. I do believe it's Caglione on the mound. I think they said that yesterday. If they won, they're going to go with Cags. Cags hasn't been great this year. He walks a ton of guys. OK State's got a good offense. They could score. They're going to go with Brian Holiday, who's been awesome this year. I mean, you're getting a really good number with Florida. Are you biting on it, or would you maybe take a plus 1.5 with the Gators? How do you think the best way to attack this matchup is?
The over. I just feel like no run rule, as we know, for anything, but it's going to be hot. it's going to be a matter of time till some of these offenses start running into the ball, and both these teams can just score. Florida could have scored 10 runs yesterday if they didn't hit into – how many lineouts did they hit into with runners on yesterday?
They hit a lot.
They hit the crap out of the ball yesterday. So,
Brett
like you
Sears
got
got
mentioned,
lucky. His line
DVU.
looked a lot better.
Yeah,
His line
Florida could have put up 10 plus on that game yesterday if they had endless balls not directly hit. And give good credit to the defense yesterday too. They played good defense. Nebraska played good defense yesterday, so you give them credit for it. But yeah, I think that 13.5 is still too low. I think that one can get there real quick. I had Florida yesterday. I would lean Florida again today. What is it, plus 110 on the plus 1.5? But I don't think this one ends in a one-run game either way. So I would just take Florida probably on the plus 150.
Where's the 13.5 that you saw?
Bovada's got it up for most every game now.
Oh, Bovada? Okay.
Yeah, Bovada's got almost everything except.
Now we have the base. I think that's probably pretty fair. I would probably lean the over as well. Every time I need Brian Holiday, he shit the bed this year. Holiday's had a fantastic season. Brian Holiday's 3.12 ERA, 118 Ks, only 18 walks in 104 innings. But like a lot of pitchers who do have a bugaboo, his is the long ball. A lot of guys have it. He's given up 12 tanks this year, and you're going against a team in Florida that can put the ball over the fence. Now, Brian Holiday's been fantastic over his last 4 starts. 6 2/3, 2 earned. 6 1/3, no earned. 8 1/3, 2 earned. UCF last week, complete game, 1 earned. He doesn't walk a lot of batters. Florida can strike out a little bit. And, I have tickets on both of these teams to win the College World Series. Like I said, Florida was just like a little protection piece, but like Oklahoma State, I took late just to get a little bit more exposure on the right side of the bracket, mainly the bottom right quadrant. I do think OK State should win, but I do think this game is going to be a little bit higher scoring. I feel like every time we're in Oklahoma State, there's always runs up on the board, and it just seems like there's always these high scores when Brian Holiday's pitching. But I do have one question regarding that total. OK State put up almost a 20 piece yesterday. Do you think they blew their load? We rarely see teams who score a lot of runs one day come back and score the next. It's this weird thing that like some teams blow their load and can't come back the next day.
I mean, even if possibly, but they're also at home. They could do it again. I mean, and who's to say Florida can't put up 15 today? Cags could go for 2 jacks on his. I mean, we know what that offense can do at times. These teams are both, offensive-based units, and where you're playing, you get the trampoline effect there. I mean, the ball just flies. It always does. Mm-hmm. They already got confident. I mean, I understand the ups and downs, but I don't expect that now, back-to-back days of, your season not on the line, but basically your season on the line. And the time now to, if you're hot, you're staying hot, in my opinion. And we know flat out, it's all about Cags. If Cags' accuracy is decent, if he can locate even remotely well, then we know, at least he can stick around. He also still has the velocity, lack of movement, I guess we could say. It just takes running into the ball with him, too. I mean, he's going to supply the power 3/4 of the time. On the other side, 8-6 gets there. That's not even a high-scoring game. 8-6 gets us over the 13.5. It doesn't take much.
9 out of 13 Cags' 13 starts this year, 12 runs has been scored in those 9.
12 or more, or 12 total?
12 or more.
Yeah. And how many have Florida scored just because they know they have to score? I'm like talking myself into it more. But Florida, you get a mindset, as well, too. You get a mindset as a player when certain guys are out there. You're just like, hey, today's going to be a battle. We're going to have to score runs. Like, no matter what, we're playing a team in Oklahoma State. We're not playing small ball today until late. I don't expect any kind of small ball until very late in this game, if even, at all. It's going to be who can outslug the other, because one run is not going to be enough in this one.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think value-wise, Florida's probably the better side, but personally, I'm absenting myself from a side here just because, I'm rooting for Oklahoma State. I don't want Florida to advance. I have more money riding on OK State than Florida. But this is why I took the money. That's why I took Florida at 70-1, just in case they weaseled their way through Nebraska and got themselves past OK State in their 2-0 spot, and then they're going to have a winnable super region on deck against Clemson or Coastal or Vanderbilt or whoever. So that was like my thinking, and you know what? That's why I'm probably just going to sit this one out. I probably would lean the over if I was going to play if that total is 13.5, because I do think that is a little low. And I feel like I said this yesterday. I kind of felt like we were going to see a lot of high totals because they were mismatched. They weren't 100% accurate. And I do think, especially with the no run rule, that's big. We saw a lot of overs yesterday, but not as many as I thought. And I just think a lot of it had to do with a couple of offenses, just a few big offenses just being completely flat. But I think today we're going to see some runs scored in a lot of games today. All right, we
saw more, and we saw more. Not everybody, but we saw more of your top quality guys too. So more nerves, game 1, 2, just a lot with it, and everybody's looser and everybody's playing for their life today. So it does change the mindset. You got to score. You got to keep scoring.
All right, UC Irvine is a dog at Oregon State. Irvine blew a very big lead yesterday, 9-1. Nicholls State comes back in the 9th, takes the lead, and then Irvine walks them off. It was a crazy game. Oregon State was pretty stress-free from the second half of the game on. I think it's Jacob Kamau today for Oregon State. Irvine burned Nick Pinto yesterday, which was big. I don't think Irvine's got enough pitching to quiet an Oregon State offense. I'm going to say they're going to go with either Trevor Hansen or Brandon Liu. That's UC Irvine. Both of those guys are okay in a Big West conference. But I think Oregon State's going to get this done. I have Oregon State. I have another big Oregon State ticket to win it all. I have them. They were another Final 8 team for me preseason. I think they have a good path if they get past here. And then I think they can beat Kentucky in the Super Regional should they get there. Minus 190, Jacob Kamau. The offense is clicking now. You got Micah McDowell back in the trenches. You got Trent Caraway back, who was, I think, 2 for 3 yesterday in his first game. And, we're talking about Duke in terms of they need all these different pieces, and it's a machine when it's working. It's like a Ferrari. Oregon State's offense is so deep. This is the team why I believed in them early in the year. First 3 weeks, their offense was tops in the country. And they had a couple key guys miss a lot of time. But now their entire offense is where it needs to be. It's back. I think Oregon State is the side here. For anybody asking, I think Oregon State is a good leg in a parlay today.
Yeah, I got skewed by watching Oregon State so much. I only remember the losses, so they frustrate me at times. But yeah, no, they're a really quality squad, and big advantage too that goes a little underrated with them playing up in Oregon. It's just a different environment. The weather on top of everything too, so it is a different place to play. Sleepy old Corvallis is a different world, but I do agree with you. Definitely concerning for giving up 12 to Nicholls. That's worrisome. That offense is good, but you should not be giving up 12 to Nicholls, especially with a Pinto start that you were fortunate to get a W out of at the end of all said and done. But yeah, I think that Oregon State, pretty good path with this one to get out of it.
All right, 2 more here. We've got Grand Canyon plus 110 against West Virginia. I believe WVU would probably throw 8 in major. I have not confirmed that, but this is just context clues of what I've seen throughout the year. And I would guess Grand Canyon is going to go with Daniel Avicia, right? Or Avidia.
I think so. I mean, the joy with yesterday's performance was they were able to really keep a lot of it intact. They did a nice job in terms of managing what could have blown up. I mean, they had that bases loaded, nobody out early in that game after they took that lead, and they obviously gave it up quickly, but they got a couple key outs there and then kept it down until they were able to put up 7 unanswered in the last 3 innings. And to me, that above all else is huge. I think the confidence of not only beating the 1 seed on the road, but the way that they were able to come through clutch after clutch after clutch, those last 3 innings will carry over. I like the value again with Grand Canyon.
I do too. I'm probably not going to play this. I am rooting for Grand Canyon. I think, Grand Canyon is a fun team. They're a team that a lot of people don't really know about. They don't watch during the regular season. They play out in the WAC. They play late nights. And I think, especially if Daniel Visha, the guy who is a very intriguing draft prospect, the guy who has pitched in big games before, I think he's capable of getting it done here. I mean, personally, I'm rooting for Grand Canyon because I think that's probably the easiest way for Dallas Baptist to climb out of the hole. And also, like, once West Virginia gets past Derek Clark in their pitching rotation, there is some fall off. Aiden Major is a very talented arm, but he's had some struggles this year. And Grand Canyon's got some guys in the lineup that can get to him. And you're going to give us plus money on that. I do think it's probably the way to go. And like West Virginia's offense had a lot of chances yesterday, and they still couldn't. They couldn't score. And granted, one swing of the bat on a ball that was pulverized by Logan Suave over the batter's eye resulted in 3 runs. I do think Grand Canyon is probably the better side today. So if I was going to play something, which I am not, then I would look at taking Grand Canyon as I go. Sorry, there's a bug. Okay, last game. UC Santa Barbara, Oregon. Santa Barbara host minus 145 against the Oregon Ducks. I would say it's the Ducks throwing Grayson Grenzel, again, not confirmed. And then Barbara would probably throw either Tyler Bremner or Mike Gutierrez. I had Oregon winning this region. Oregon was plus 350 when I gave it out on Monday. I had them taking this region because I believed that they would be able to beat Santa Barbara. Santa Barbara swept them in the regular season, Cal. I think it's time for a little revenge, and I think Oregon remembers that. This is a team that has been here before, and I just don't think that the Gauchos offensively are that good. So if Grenzel can give a performance kind of like what R.J. Gordon did yesterday against San Diego, I think they're going to be able to find a way to get this one done, and they're plus money, and they're the home team.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be fun. I absolutely love to see a little bit of West Coast life left, especially with a smaller school here. But let's remember, what's Santa Barbara's record at home this year?
25-0.
Yeah. So
yeah, who have they beaten? They swept.
I agree.
And they swept UConn. Okay, those are two very good sweeps. I think Oregon revenge game here, and not for nothing. Like the Big West is the Big West. The Pac-12 we bag on. There's still some good teams in the Pac-12.
The Big West was really bad this year.
Yeah, so you know what? I'm not really feeling Santa Barbara. This was a team I had fading coming into the regional. I thought that they were probably one of the most vulnerable number 1 seeds. It was probably Santa Barbara and ECU. Those were 2 at the top of my list. So I do think that Oregon, especially getting the number, is the side.
Yeah, it's a layoff for me just because I am more intrigued to watch it than see value. So I worry a little bit about Oregon offensively. But I do like what they do style-wise. They are more a team that's looking to get a couple at a time instead of blow the game open. Yeah, hey, and I don't hate that. You get 9 at bats, you score a run every inning, you're putting up 9. I don't hate what I saw yesterday. That was a big game for them. So you do worry, is there a little bit of a come down after that massive back and forth they went through yesterday? That's an emotional roller coaster. We'll see how it covers over. I'm all for rooting on your side with Oregon, but it will be a layoff spot for me.
I can understand that. Before we get out of here, Cal, is there any other games, any other plays that you wanted to talk about?
We got to look back and see. I can't remember. We talked about so many of them. There's just so many. It's fun to be able to go through all these, meaningful games.
Well, what about big underdogs? Are you looking at any of those big underdogs?
Army.
Ooh, really?
I liked what I saw yesterday. This is just a pure fade spot. I mean, Georgia Tech, lifeless, goes down 8-0 yesterday. If anything, Army, you're telling me there's not a team more motivated to be playing baseball than Army right now? Like, what else would they be doing today? Push-ups? They're probably doing that right now anyways. Like, they probably already ran like 13 miles this morning, had like 12 eggs. Like, talk about a team with discipline and motivated. They looked good yesterday. They didn't look scared against that Georgia squad. I liked what I saw. You get that early home run. That can help a little bit. I like them to stick around. I took them plus 3.5. I just gave that out for free. But, plus 245. I don't hate it. There's a couple today that it's just like, you know what? You're playing in the loser's bracket. Anything can happen today. And the mental side of baseball is tough. Like, there's nothing but sitting around and waiting sometimes during a game. So when you got nothing to do but think about how you have to win this game versus a team that's like, hey, we're happy to be here and we'll just keep playing and doing our thing. Kind of like a Grambling State fits into today. What do they have to lose?
It's true. I think maybe there's one like nice dog that I'm curious about. What do you think about the 1-0 game between Illinois and Kentucky? I was staying away from like the big like Texas A&M, Tennessee, Kentucky's just because I thought we were on time crunch. But do you think Illinois got a shot? They're plus 185 against Kentucky. Kentucky really got lucky to escape yesterday.
I've been big on Illinois all year. One of my partners in Florida, and he's a Chicago guy, so I have always loved enjoying talking about Illinois, and I thought they would be really good because the Big Ten was all over the place this year for one, and they just continued to win these games and gut them out and play. I think yesterday, if Kentucky would have won like 13-0 yesterday, I think Illinois had some value. But I think all that yesterday did was kind of kick them in the balls and say, hey, look, you guys aren't going to just stroll through this thing. We saw, I think, maybe the same way that it might happen to Arkansas as well, blowing that 8-0 lead. So I think that if I was going to look at Illinois, I would want more value, at least over 2-1. I like Kentucky to handle business. Obviously, they're still a crazy number, but I think today is another good spot at home where they know they can't F around because they saw what happened yesterday. And if Western Michigan's putting that up on you, you got to get yourselves in order. And I think that was a good kind of kick in the ass to get them restarted while still being like, okay, we made it out. Now we can't mess around. So I think it's it's a tough spot for Illinois today. Let's just say, I think they need more value to be worth a wager.
Last point. What do you think about High Point against Vanderbilt?
I'm on High Point.
Yeah, let's go. We our boy. Hold on. We got our boy here, Sunday Puncher. Let's go. HP getting 3.5 runs. How do you not pocket that? Because I got HP plus 380 this morning. Now it's 270. That is, I think that's a good one here. I think it's probably going to have to be. I don't know how you don't go Carter Holton with your season on the line. Maybe they go Cunningham today. I have to take a look. I haven't really looked that much into the game just because I don't really care, to tell you the truth. But I do think High Point it's intriguing, man. Those Carolina teams, you got a lot of talent in those Carolina teams. Carolinas, Florida, Georgia, California, Texas. Those are like those areas in the country where some guys aren't good enough to play at like the top schools in the country, but they're really good. And you get all the overflow to some of these smaller schools like in East Carolina, like a High Point. And, Vanderbilt, you would think they would bounce back, but after seeing what they did yesterday, I don't know, man. I really don't.
Yep. We took High Point at plus 380 last night when it came out. So I like the same thing. I said, why not us? And, this is the biggest year ever for High Point. They finally get that actual conference victory. They get that title. And that's a school that's just continued to build up. I mean, the basketball team's been getting better and better. It's cool to see. I played against High Point. I have fond memories of playing against High Point. So it's cool to see them doing something right now. And it means who does it mean more to, honestly? Again, Vanderbilt or High Point?
High Point.
In a loser's bracket game. Vandy's got other things. They got players with bigger intentions. They got a coach looking at recruiting for next year. There's different feelings. Everybody's all in at High Point still right now.
And all right, one more thing before we get out of here. Anybody looking for like a little 3-teamer? I saw somebody pop in here. Where was it? Need a three-team parlay. Tony Smith. All right, I'm going to give you a little chalk latte parlay that I personally like, and I might play myself. Oregon State at home. They're a nice little -190. Texas A&M with Ryan Prager, I would guess, on the mound against Texas. I don't think that's a gimme against Texas, but I do think A&M should win. They got their guy on the mound. They're in their own building. And then Florida State with Jamie Arnold on the mound against UCF, -250. You parlay those three together, it's +203. I think it's fair value. I think that has a very good chance to win today. I think it's all teams that should be capable of advancing to the Super Regionals. Cal, I want to say thank you so much for taking the time today. I know we ran a little bit over, but thanks so much, man. I really appreciate it. And everybody watching, we'll hope we gave you some good insight for today. And best of luck. And Cal, I'll see you soon, my man. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Cheers. Everybody enjoy the weekend. It's only going to get crazier.
All right, guys, take it easy, and we'll talk to you later.